Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And we're back on Cutting Edge Consciousness. I pointed to you to say something, and you looked at me like...
That was a very unconscious moment on Cutting Edge Consciousness. So the two of us stumbling over the microphones. We're back, and that conversation with Carl about so many things. But at the bottom of it, the foundational note about beauty and meaning and...
I like the part about other ways to learn. And I mean, it's such a consistent theme of people who I know from University of Santa Monica who say, wow, we could have learned this way. Looking back on academics in a totally different light because it's so experiential and it's so, I think, fulfilling and rewarding to be able to express yourself. I mean, there's so many creative moments. I remember the projects from USM and just how much fun they were. And again, you think in school, at least I did, and I get this from my kids too, like a project, oh gosh, you know. But when we were like a project, everyone at USM was like rubbing their hands together. Oh, good, what's this going to be? And there was tons of group work. We had, broke off into teams and groups all the time. And, that's the part. And I want to even mention this collaboration class I'm doing with the kids, doing a bunch of team building stuff. And it's the same principle. Let's teach these kids to play together versus, and what I'm responding to is Antonio and the boys have been having trouble with, it's kind of like a Lord of the Flies thing. The basketball team, first year playing basketball, and they really did get slaughtered. They lost every game by 20 points, and it was almost like they were being bullied out there. And I remember one game where the coach kept putting pressure on, and these kids were actually fouling our kids, and the ref wasn't calling it. And I was like, so you're crushing our kids, and you're actually teaching them how to play the game incorrectly. And what's the value here? It was really psychotic in the way that I...
What did it bring up for you?
Feeling dominated, and I really reacted. I had to leave. I got so overwhelmed with the process, and I found myself yelling at the ref, call the foul. Like, why are you letting this go on?
So you became like a little league dad.
Well, my own version, because I'm not trying to get our kids to crush them. I'm just trying to make it so that our kids don't leave feeling dejected. And it was actually after that game that they started then fighting within themselves on the schoolyard. And so the teacher called the parents and several of the parents of the boys and said, we got to figure this out. And I went in there and I said, look, here's my take on it. And so I went the next week and we all sat in a circle and I talked with the entire class about competition and about collaboration and about how did it feel to be in the game. And we had a beautiful conversation. And then the teacher and I afterwards, we talked and she said, that's so great. I wish we could do that every week. And I said, well, I can't do it every week, but every other week I can come in for an hour. Why don't we do collaboration? Why don't we do some exercises and some games and teach these kids another set of skills that are, in my mind, more valuable than learning to compete in life. So
beautiful.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things I felt, I still feel really compelled to follow through on, because it matters to me,
I don't want to put you on the spot unless you're willing to be put on the spot. Sure. So as it matters, and to express it in that way is absolutely beautiful, and that it is a theme, a life theme.
Totally.
So at some point in your own awareness of why is that so strong a theme in your awareness? Why is it, we carry these imprints and lens through them. So not to say in any way that your reaction and response to the circumstances was anything but beautiful. In addition to that...
It was messy.
Messy or not messy. Messy or not messy.
Was not tucked in.
Not messy. Messy or not messy. You're responding to how it shows up in the outer world. But in the inner world, how do you respond to this energy of it's not fair and there are hierarchies, and how do you respond to that part?
Not well sometimes. I mean, it feels so good. So, for example, at the ATL, Association of Transformational Leaders weekends, specifically this last one, I felt really open and playful, and I was having a lot of fun, and that feels so good. And the nature of the group is we play together. We compete sometimes too, which isn't helpful, but I mean, the primary orientation is towards playing and collaborating, and I'm collaborating, as you know, and so are you, with some folks in that room. And it just feels really, really good to be playing. I'm playing with Susan Leahy.
So I'm referring to the trigger moments. I know when I am triggered.
Well, that's the other side of it. So that's the side where that's what's available. So when we're going to, are we really comparing and competing? Is this really fighting for the bigger end of the stick? Like when that occurs in my experience, I react really strongly because that's a very painful part of my experience.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
So the part that is triggered is not going to respond to or be alleviated to creating environments for other people that are spoken. They help, but they're not systemic cultures of collaboration, because alive in us is a patterning that of competition and bullying and domination. It's still alive in us, or we wouldn't be triggered.
Yeah.
So I pointed out because there are lots and lots of areas where I continue to get triggered, and we were talking earlier about, where is the point where you just keep going back over the past and over the past, and I'm not saying that we should go back over the past, but one of the values, as you pointed out earlier, you thought it is appropriate to certainly excavate past so we understand certain themes, so that those themes can be responded to.
Yeah.
And one of the ways to respond to them is a self-parenting thing. What is being triggered is not happening in the now. You're triggering a ghost from the past.
That's right.
And that ghost from the past, many people refer to it different ways. Eckhart, who we're involved with, speaks to it as the pain body. It overwhelms your reality. And without getting too esoteric, all right, I'm not going to get esoteric at all. It overwhelms our realities, and those are the lenses. That is the guy who's driving the bus. So we can create environments where we say, well, don't do as I do, do as I say. So we can talk beautifully to children and about cooperation. But inside, I am still running. I'm still allowing the part of me that feels dominated and that believes in domination, either as a victim or a victimizer, to take over and drive my bus. So some balance between showing up in the outer world as beautifully as you did, equally measured with the awareness that I'm being triggered and I want to self-nurture that part. And there's all sorts of ways to self-nurture that part. But I think they go hand in hand. Otherwise, the actions that we take in the outer world will continue to be tripped up because we are not rewiring the fundamental blueprint of our worldview.
It's an empowered response to, so part of what I created, because I believe I created it all, is my son, who represents me. He's sweet and loving and open, and he's now having to compete. This is my backstory, that something was broken in my experience where the loving, sweet, open, kind, generous me got shut down.
And that's the one that needs to be healed.
Right.
Not Antonio.
So I understand that. So what I'm responding to is he's having the same experience that I had, except my parents weren't conscious. Whether they did right or wrong, who cares? I'm very aware of what's happening. I saw Lord of the Flies. I'm like, oh, I know this. I see the kids starting to infight and try to figure out domination and submission. And so my empowered response is to say, great, let's balance this out. Let's figure out what healthy competition looks like, kind of identify that, help them identify that, and then let's balance it out with collaboration and teach them some of those skills. I am speaking, this whole thing is when I got to USM, I went, oh, school could have been different. So now for my own children, I want school to be different. I want them to have curriculum around collaboration. It comes from my own pain. I know that. And I could be really identified, like I'm identified with my pain, and so I'm overreacting. It is a balancing act. But the whole notion of someone who can teach someone else is someone who's been through it, so they can really show other people. The balancing act is showing without identifying.
Well, I think that you're absolutely right. I'm not challenging it.
Right.
I'm only suggesting that in addition to that, the piece that unhooks it is the self-parenting piece.
Sure.
So I was just curious because I know lots of the curriculum that you were exploring at USM had to do with self-parenting.
Sure.
And I thought maybe our listeners would benefit from hearing what are the kinds of self-parenting responses to that triggered self that goes from the past, that small kid who was bullied or who was not seen, who was not comforted by parents, who was not held in that sort of love. What kinds of responses are available to self-parent that
I'll answer that.
inner kid?
So quick with compassion, that there's we go back to the RAIN acronym that Tara Brock brought up: recognize, accept, investigate, and I would bring up the second I would really be integrate, allow for the part of me, and then not identify. So relate to. So the first thing is just to be aware, oh, I'm triggered. And then accept, like, oh, this is that part. I get it. And then investigate, like, okay, so what's going on? How do I want to be with the part of me that's triggered right now? Not identifying. Identifying is jumping on the making something wrong or right. But there is an empowered response where I can step in and reparent for myself and also guide Antonio and some of the other boys so that they don't have to go through a self-abandoning of their sensitivity and their vulnerability, to be tough, to be man-like, to fight back, and then overcompensate by getting really competitive, because that's what the pain body or the pain experience, that's the response to it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you for that clarification, for that add-on.
Clear as a bell.
For that add-on. Well, I think now that, we've made it clear, we've come to the end of our time together. And so we thank you, listeners and watchers, for being with us for another edition of Cutting Edge Consciousness. We hope that you'll come back next time. And if you enjoy this program, there are many others like it in our archive, and like us on Facebook, like us to your friends, like us. We like to be liked. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching.